Through the window of Magnolia Quay Coffee, three of America's most expensive supercars gleamed at the curb: a Hennessy Venom F5, a Chinger 21C, a Ford GT Mach 4. Vivian Ashford never glanced twice. The man across her table wore a faded flannel, a smear of engine grease near one wrist. A poor single father, the matchmaker had warned her. 2 o'clock. Blind date. 11 minutes in, she stood. "I have a meeting." Her heels clicked across the floor, past the window, past the three supercars at the curb. She walked between them. She didn't know they were his. 40 minutes earlier, on the 32nd floor of the Ashford Hospitality Tower, Vivian was closing on a coastal property in Beaufort. Her assistant slid the final page across the desk. Vivian signed. Her phone vibrated. "Mother." "Vivian, 2 o'clock. Magnolia Key. Marcus arranged it. He's a Charleston gentleman. Don't embarrass me again." Vivian closed her eyes for half a second. It was a board review week. She could not afford another fight with the family. She told her assistant to push the 4 o'clock call. Across town, in a converted brick warehouse on the outskirts of Charleston, Nathaniel Calloway was kneeling beside a Hennessy Venom F5 with its bonnet open. He had been there since 5 in the morning. The customer was a Japanese collector who had waited 2 years for the calibration to be finished by hand. Nate moved a torque wrench a quarter turn and rechecked the dial. Lily sat on a tall stool beside him, swinging her legs, drawing with colored pencils. 3 cars and a sun. She held it up. Nate nodded once and went back to the dial. His shop manager appeared at the bay door. "You have that thing at 2, boss." Nate exhaled. 3 years since Emily. 3 years since he had agreed to anything that involved a tablecloth. He had said yes, only because Emily's college friend had asked, and her family knew the matchmaker, and the matchmaker knew a man named Marcus Whitmore. None of that felt like reason enough. He went anyway. He dropped Lily at her grandmother's house on Trad Street, kissed the top of her head, and got back into the 1998 Ford pickup. He did not go home. The flannel was clean enough. The grease near his cuff would not come out in 5 minutes. At the same moment, 3 delivery drivers from Callaway Coachworks were inching down East Bay Street with 3 customer vehicles bound for the showroom: the Hennessy, the Chinger, the Ford GT Mach 4. A street festival had blocked Vendu Range. The drivers parked along the curb in front of Magnolia Key Coffee and waited for the signal to roll into the back lot. Nate never saw them. He had a rule. He did not let customers see him in their own cars. Vivian arrived first. She took the table by the window because Rosa, the manager, gestured her there without asking. She glanced at her Cartier. 2 o'clock exactly. The supercars at the curb registered only as obstacles to her line of sight. Nate walked in. Faded gray flannel. Grease near his right wrist. Vivian's first thought was not anger. It was certainty. Marcus had sent her a mechanic to test how she would react, a small, mean joke at her expense. Nate pulled out the chair across from her. He started to say something about his daughter. He did not finish. 11 minutes later, Vivian stood. "I have a meeting." Nate did not rise. He nodded once, gently, and turned toward Rosa. "Put hers on my tab, please. Thank you." Vivian did not hear him. She walked past the table, past the window, past the 3 supercars at the curb. She did not look up. She slid into the back of the Range Rover and told the driver to go. The next morning, Vivian sat across from her mother and Marcus in the corner booth of the Sycamore Club. She kept the report brief. The meeting had not been a good fit. Marcus gave a thin smile and reached for his coffee. "I warned you. There aren't many decent men left in Charleston." Her mother sighed. Vivian let it pass. At noon, she went back to Magnolia Quay Coffee for a working lunch with 2 clients from Singapore. Rosa recognized her at the door and walked her to the same window table she had left less than 24 hours earlier. Vivian did not register the choice until the menus were set down. The Singapore meeting ran 60 minutes and ended in a handshake. As the clients left, Vivian caught Rosa's eye and gestured her closer. She asked quietly about the man in the gray flannel from the day before. She framed it as small talk. Rosa paused for half a second. Then she answered in a voice she had clearly measured beforehand. "Mr. Calloway has been a regular here for 12 years, Miss Ashford. He has a standing table. This one." Vivian set her cup down. "Calloway. I'm not at liberty to say more, ma'am." Rosa inclined her head. She did not look away. She did not apologize. Vivian paid the bill. She did not finish the espresso. Back at the tower, she pulled up her phone and typed Callaway Charleston into the search bar. The first result was a black landing page with a single line of white text. Callaway Coachworks by invitation only, no phone, no address, no images. The second result was a Forbes profile from 2017, referring to an unnamed atelier near Charleston that restores and refines the most exclusive American hypercars in private hands. The reporter had not allowed inside. She called Daniel Ng, her head of brand marketing. The supercar from the Kiowa Island campaign last year. The Ford GT. Where did it come from? Daniel answered without hesitation. Callaway Coachworks. They lent it to us. No fee. The owner said he respected the Ashford name. Said he knew your grandmother. Vivian was quiet. Should I pull it from the rotation? Daniel asked. No, she said. Send me every image we have of it. The folder opened on her screen. 12 frames. A matte coupe parked at the curve of the hotel drive, the river behind it. Vivian zoomed in on the rear quarter. She had walked past that car the day before. She had walked between two others just like it. She set the phone face down on the desk. 12 years of regular table. A car in her own flagship campaign. A line of customers a Forbes reporter was not allowed to photograph. She was not angry. The feeling at the base of her spine was colder than anger. It was the recognition of having stepped on something fragile without knowing it. In the warehouse outside the city, Lily was perched on the workbench, eating a half sandwich. How was coffee yesterday, Daddy? Nate wiped his hands on the shop rag. I ate a sandwich, alone. Lily watched him for a moment. She did not ask anything else. She had learned, before she was old enough to name it, when not to ask. She held out half her sandwich. Nate took it. 2 days passed. Vivian did not call. She did not write. On Thursday morning she canceled a board prep session, told her assistant to clear 2 hours, and drove herself to the address she had finally pulled from a private investigator she trusted. The warehouse sat on the marsh side of Charleston, off Meeting Street Extension. Red brick. 3 stories. A wrought iron gate, hand-forged. A small bronze plate. Callaway Coachworks established 2009. No phone. No buzzer. The gate opened when her tires crossed a sensor in the gravel. Inside, the air was cool and clean as an operating room. Concrete floors polished to a low sheen, 6 hypercars in various stages of disassembly, an SSC Tuatara stripped to the chassis, a Saleen S7 with 1 door off, 2 Ford GTs, a Chinger lifted on a custom rig, 18 technicians in charcoal coveralls. No music, only the click of torque wrenches and the soft pneumatic hiss of an airline. Nate was kneeling beside a 12-cylinder engine with the cylinder head off. He looked up when she stepped in. He showed no surprise. He stood. He wiped his hands on a clean rag. He gestured her forward. He did not ask why she was there. He did not ask for an apology. He walked her through the floor as he would walk any prospective client. He explained build times, the protocol for matching paint to a customer's exact yacht livery. The wait list. He did not give her a single name. Up a steel staircase to a mezzanine office. A plain oak desk. A photograph on the wall, black and white. A woman with long hair laughing into a wind. Emily, 2 years before the diagnosis, beside it, a smaller frame. Lily, 4 years old, sitting on the hood of a Ford GT, both legs swinging. Vivian's throat was dry. She made herself ask the only question that mattered. Why didn't you say anything that day? Nate did not look at her. He looked at the photograph of Emily. Because you had already decided. I'm not used to arguing with other people's decisions. There was no edge in his voice, no injury. If he had been angry, she could have apologized. The absence of anger was the harder thing. A door opened downstairs. Lily's voice, quick and high, talking to her nanny. School had let out. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time and stopped at the office door when she saw Vivian. Hi. Lily looked from her father to the woman in the gray suit. Are you Daddy's customer? Vivian could not speak for a second. She nodded. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a piece of paper folded in half. She crossed the room and handed it to Vivian, very seriously, the way another child might hand over a passport. I drew it the day Daddy went for coffee. 3 cars and a son. Vivian held it in both hands. She thanked the girl. Lily ran off to find her nanny. Vivian and Nate walked down the staircase in silence. At the gate, she turned. She started to say something. Nate shook his head once, very slightly. "You don't owe me that, Miss Ashford." She drove herself home. She laid the drawing on the passenger seat. She did not fold it. She did not put it in her bag. At a red light, she looked at it for a long time before the light changed. By the end of that week, Marcus had heard. His assistant mentioned it offhand. The CEO drove out to a private workshop on Meeting Street Extension. Spent 2 hours. Did not say where she was going. Marcus set down his pen. The color drained from his face for reasons that had nothing to do with romance. 3 years ago, one of his shell companies, Whitmore Hospitality Solutions LLC, had attempted to commission a restoration at Callaway Coachworks. The shop had returned the deposit and declined the order. The reason given in the polite letter was irregular payment routing. Nate Callaway had not pursued it further, but he had kept the file. Marcus knew, because he had been told by a contact in Callaway's legal office 2 months later that the documentation remained on a shelf, indexed by date. Marcus had assumed the file would die on that shelf. Now the CEO of Ashford Hospitality had driven out to the same building. He picked up his phone and called Harrison Pope, a senior board member he had cultivated over 3 winters of charity dinners. "I'm worried about Vivian. I'm hearing she may be entangled with a local vendor. We should be careful." He let the silence sit. He did not say more than that. A week later, Vivian sent Nate a formal invitation to the Ashford annual fundraiser at the Charleston Place Ballroom. The wording placed him as a vehicle partner for the brand campaign. It was the most polite apology she could draft without writing the word. Nate came. He brought Lily. Lily wore a pale blue dress and brought a book on antebellum architecture. She found a velvet bench in the corner of the ballroom, opened the book on her knees, and stayed there for the next hour, looking up only when a server brought her a glass of water. Marcus stationed himself near the bar. He introduced Nate to a Hong Kong real estate developer as a charming local mechanic Vivian has been helping out. Nate smiled, nodded, did not correct him. 20 minutes later, Hiroshi Tanaka walked in. The Tokyo collector who had waited 2 years for his Venom F5. He saw Nate from across the room, set his glass down on a passing tray, and bowed deeply. "Callaway-sensei, this is my honor." The Hong Kong developer turned to Marcus and asked, mildly, who Mr. Callaway was. Marcus did not answer. A woman from Geneva answered for him. "He is the only man in America I trust with my car." 2-year wait list. Vivian stood 3 steps away. She had been watching Nate. After Tanaka's bow, she did not watch Nate. She watched Marcus. At the end of the evening, Lily slipped through the crowd and tugged the hem of Vivian's sleeve. "Do you want to see what I drew tonight?" Vivian knelt down. Lily showed her a page of the architecture book, the corner folded over a hand-drawn copy of a wrought iron gate. "I think you'd like a gate like this on your building." Vivian touched the page lightly. "Which building?" Lily looked at her surprised. "The one you're going to build." Vivian glanced up at Nate, who was watching them from across the room. He was not smiling. He was simply watching, the way a man watches something he does not want to disturb. After the fundraiser, Marcus left first. He did not say goodnight to Vivian. Nate offered to drive her somewhere she could breathe. He did not phrase it that way. He said, "There's a car in the lot that needs one last test run before delivery. You could ride along." It was the Ford GT Make 4. Going to a client in Naples in the morning. Nate had not let anyone but his lead engineer take it out yet. Vivian got in. They drove south out of the peninsula, through Mount Pleasant, across the bridge to James Island, down Folly Road, where the houses thinned out and the marsh began to glow under a half-moon. He kept the windows half down. The salt air came in. He did not put on music. She asked him about Emily. He did not turn his head. She was an architect. She designed the workshop. "I just keep it running." Vivian was quiet for a long mile. Then she said something she had not said to anyone in 15 years. "I didn't want to be CEO. I wanted to work in heritage preservation. My mother said no." Nate did not respond right away. When he did, it was only, "There's still time." They reached the end of Folly Beach. He pulled the car off the road, into the lot where the asphalt gave way to sand. He killed the engine. The Morris Island lighthouse beam swept across the water every 6 seconds. They sat on the hood. Neither of them spoke. The metal was warm from the engine. Vivian had not been on the hood of a car since she was 17 years old. After a while, Nate said very quietly, "You don't have to explain that night. I'm not asking. She watched the lighthouse beam pass over the water. "I know," she said. "That's the hard part." They drove back the slower way, through the streets along the seawall. He did not put on music on the return trip either. The dashboard lights cast a faint amber on the dial of his watch and the line of his jaw. Vivian did not look at him. She listened to the engine and the wind. He pulled up outside her building on East Bay Street. He did not turn off the engine. He looked at the corner of the lobby light, not at her. "You should pull the third quarter maintenance reports for the Savannah and Hilton Head properties. Specifically the line items routed through an outside contractor. Don't say who told you to look." She turned. "What?" He was already moving. He stepped out, opened her door, closed it behind her. He walked around to the driver's side without looking back. The Ford GT pulled away from the curb and turned left at the next intersection, the sound of its engine falling away down the street. Vivian stood on the sidewalk for a long time. She did not go in immediately. In her apartment, she did not turn on the lights. She walked to the window and looked out over the rooftops of the historic district, where the church spires were lit from below in soft white. She thought about the man who had said almost nothing for 2 hours and then handed her, on the way out, a thread she would have to pull alone. She slept 3 hours. She was at her desk by 6. At 6:15 in the morning, Vivian called her chief financial officer at home. She wanted the maintenance ledgers for Savannah, Hilton Head, and Tybee Island on her desk by 9. 3 years deep, line by line. By 10 she had a pattern. Not enough to indict, enough to look closer. A few minutes after 10 her front desk called up. "A Miss Rosa Delgado is here from Magnolia Quay Coffee. She doesn't have an appointment." Vivian asked the desk to send her up. Rosa stepped into the office in a gray jacket and clean black slacks. She did not sit. She placed a manila envelope, sealed with wax, on the corner of the desk. "I shouldn't be here, but my husband has been dead 2 years. I have nothing left to be afraid of." Vivian opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet. A photocopy of an invoice from 3 years earlier. A request to Callaway Coachworks for the purchase of a used Ford GT under the routing instructions of One Whitmore Hospitality Solutions, LLC. The signature line was Marcus Whitmore's. Vivian's hand went still on the desk. Rosa spoke in a low, careful voice. "My husband Mateo worked in Mr. Callaway's legal office before he died. He kept this. Mr. Callaway never used it. He said business was not a reason to break a family. But I thought you should have it. You don't deserve to be lied to." Vivian looked up. "Why now?" Rosa held her eyes. "Because you stood up too fast that day. Mr. Callaway deserved better than that. And so do you." Vivian thanked her, formally, the way her grandmother had thanked the housekeepers when she was a child. Rosa nodded once and left. The receptionist later said she walked out as quietly as she had come in. By noon, Vivian had laid the invoice next to the maintenance ledger. The shell company name matched. The exact corporate address matched. The bank routing matched. She called her personal attorney, a woman she had known since law school. She called the 3 independent board members she trusted most. By 3 in the afternoon, a quiet internal audit was authorized. The auditors were instructed to bypass Marcus entirely. Marcus, somewhere in the building, heard whispers and made his own move. He emailed the full board and demanded an emergency session to discuss the CEO's conflict of interest with a private vendor. He believed he was striking first. That evening, Vivian's phone buzzed once on the corner of her desk. A text from a number she did not recognize. "Would you come hear me play piano on Friday night? Daddy says you might be busy, Lily." Vivian closed her laptop. She walked to the window. The sun had gone behind the steeple of Street Phillips, and the rooftops were turning copper. She thought about Lily on a stool in a workshop, swinging her legs, drawing 3 cars and a sun. She thought about a small drawing on her passenger seat. She typed back, with her thumb, slowly, "I'll be there, I promise." She set the phone down. For a moment her face did something it had not done in front of a window in many years. She did not cry. The thing that moved across her face was smaller and harder to name. It was the recognition that she had been promised to something, by someone smaller than herself, and that she intended to keep that promise. Friday morning. 30th floor. The boardroom faced east, toward the harbor and the battery, and the light came in low and hard across the long mahogany table. 8 board members, 3 attorneys, 1 independent auditor. Marcus arrived in a charcoal suit with a green silk tie. He smiled at the room as he sat. He opened with confidence. He spoke for 19 minutes. He laid out a case that Vivian had extended preferential treatment to a local vendor, under circumstances inconsistent with the conflict of interest clauses of the Ashford operating agreement. He named no names. He let the room infer. Vivian did not interrupt. She let him finish. When he sat back, she nodded to her general counsel. The audit binders were distributed, 84 pages each, marked confidential. 3 independent forensic accountants had signed the cover sheet. The numbers were on page 41. Whitmore Hospitality Solutions, LLC. 47 separate disbursements over 3 years. Total, $4,712,000, routed out of the maintenance budgets of Savannah, Hilton Head, and Tybee Island. Authorized by a single signature. Marcus, his face shifted in micro-stages. Confidence. Calculation. Then a controlled paleness around the mouth. He tried to recover. Those were legitimate outside vendor payments. I signed them as COO. The structure is well within the indemnity clauses. Vivian placed the second document on the table. The Callaway invoice, the same shell company name, the same address, the same routing, marked 3 years prior, signed by Marcus personally for the private purchase of a Ford GT in his own name. One company, she said. Her voice did not rise. 2 uses. One to bleed the corporation, one to hide a personal asset. Both signed by you. One of Marcus's outside counsel set down his pen. A moment later, he stood and walked quietly out of the room. The chair of the board, an 81-year-old shipping heir named Eleanor Pinckney, asked Marcus to step outside. She did it gently. The preliminary vote was taken with him in the corridor. 7-1 Marcus's own proxy, voted on by an assistant who had not yet been informed to suspend him from all positions, freeze his executive accounts, and notify the FBI Charleston field office. When the door opened, Marcus knew before he looked at the table. He turned to Vivian on his way out. He spoke softly, but the acoustics of the room carried. You think a mechanic can shield you from the Ashford name? Vivian did not stand. She did not raise her voice. You never asked him what he did, Marcus. That was your problem, not mine. He left. At the workshop, 10 miles away, Nate was kneeling beside the same engine he had been calibrating that morning. His phone sat face up on the bench beside the tool tray. Screen turned to the empty home screen. He glanced at it once every 20 minutes. He did not call her. He did not text her. He had told her where to look. The rest was hers. He understood that part. He had been married long enough to know that some doors a person had to walk through alone, even when someone they trusted was standing on the other side. At 3:15, Lily, in her plaid school uniform, was running through one last rehearsal of Claire de Lune in the music wing of Ashley Hall. She missed the middle phrase on the first pass. Her teacher, a tall woman with silver hair, told her gently to begin again. Lily started over. She did not miss it the second time. Friday evening. The recital hall at Ashley Hall held 40 families and one grand piano. The lights were the warm yellow of old chandeliers. The program was printed on cream cardstock. Lily Callaway was the 5th performer. Nate arrived early. He sat in the 3rd row, second seat in from the aisle. He kept the seat beside him empty. He folded the program in half on his knee and waited. Vivian arrived 2 minutes before the lights dimmed. She had come straight from a 4-hour press briefing. She had not changed out of her work blouse. The collar was slightly creased. She slid into the seat beside Nate without speaking. He passed her the program. She took it. The first 4 children played. Vivian did not register what they played. She watched Nate's hands on his knees. He kept them very still. Then Lily walked out. White dress, black ribbon, hair pinned back on one side. She bowed to the audience, sat down at the piano, adjusted the bench by one click, and placed her fingers on the keys. Claire de Lune. Debussy. Halfway through, in the middle passage, her left ring finger brushed a key it should not have. The note shimmered, off, and resolved. Lily's eyes flicked down to the 3rd row. She found her father's face. He nodded once, just once. She kept playing. She did not miss another note. The last chord faded. The hall was silent for 1 beat longer than usual before the applause started. Lily stood, bowed, ran down the side aisle, and threw her arms around Nate's neck. Then, without being prompted, without looking at her father for permission, She turned in Nate's arms and reached for Vivian's hand. She pulled it down to her cheek. "I played that for you," Lily said. "You and Daddy sitting next to each other. That was the right way." Vivian did not cry the way other women cried. Her shoulders moved once. Her face did not change. A single line of moisture moved down her cheek and disappeared into the collar of her blouse. Nate did not look at her. He simply reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a folded linen handkerchief, freshly pressed, and laid it across her knee. She took it. She did not raise it to her face. In the parking lot, under the yellow lamps, Vivian saw Nate's 1998 Ford pickup parked next to her Range Rover. The two vehicles looked stranded next to each other. The oldest cars in the lot. She asked quietly, "Why don't you ever drive any of your own cars?" He did not look at her. "Those I make for other people. This one Emily used to ride in it. Lily came home from the hospital in this passenger seat. I can't replace it." Vivian nodded. She did not ask anything else. She drove home alone. She pulled over 3 times on the way. Once at a stoplight that turned green twice while she sat there. Once on the shoulder of Calhoun Street. Once in front of her own building, before she could bring herself to put the car in park. In her apartment, she laid the folded linen handkerchief on the kitchen counter, beside the drawing of 3 cars and a sun. She did not put either away. 10 days. Marcus Whitmore was removed from every Ashford position by unanimous vote. The FBI Charleston field office opened a formal federal case. Marcus's personal accounts were frozen pending review. The Post and Courier ran a small piece on the 3rd page of the business section. Vivian did not comment. Her office issued a single sentence. The company is cooperating fully with federal investigators. She stepped back from the day-to-day. She did not resign. She asked the board for a transitional CEO to manage operations for the next 12 months, while she reset her personal direction. The board agreed within the hour. Her standing, internally and in the market, rose. Her family, after a long silence, called her. Her mother asked, with unusual care, whether she was eating. She told her mother she was. She bought 4 adjoining brick houses on the Cooper River side of the peninsula. 1823 antebellum construction, partially derelict, owned for 60 years by a Charleston family that had been holding them through 3 failing decades. She put the deeds into a new nonprofit. She named it the Ashford Heritage Foundation. She made herself the unpaid president. Nate offered, formally and in writing, to donate all of the wrought iron work for the project gates, balcony railings, stair balusters, sconces. He refused payment. The note that accompanied the offer said only, "Consider this Emily's contribution. She would have loved this block." They worked together 3 days a week. They did not call it dating. They ate sandwiches on the front steps of the houses, and they argued about hinge sizes and the exact thickness of restoration-grade window glass. Nate brought his foreman to one meeting. Vivian brought her architect to the next. Slowly, a vocabulary built between them. It was the vocabulary of 2 people doing one thing well, side by side, without negotiation. One Saturday afternoon in October, Vivian took Lily to King Street Books. Nate had a long appointment with a client from Dubai. Lily picked a thick book about antebellum design and another about the history of South Carolina ironwork. Vivian paid for both. They walked down to Marion Square and found a bench in the shade. Lily opened the ironwork book. She read out loud, slowly, mispronouncing 2 of the longer words. Vivian did not correct her. They came to a chapter on hand-forged gates. Lily leaned her head sideways against Vivian's shoulder and stayed there. Vivian did not move. She put her arm along the back of the bench. She did not put it around the child. She left her hand near Lily's hair without touching it. After 40 minutes, Nate walked across the square from the direction of the workshop. He saw the 2 of them from the far corner. He did not call out. He stopped on the brick path 5 steps away and stood there for a long moment, looking at his daughter's head resting on the shoulder of a woman who, 6 months earlier, had walked out of a coffee shop in 11 minutes. He let the picture last another half-minute. Then he stepped forward and said his daughter's name. Lily looked up. She did not move from Vivian's shoulder right away. 6 months after the morning the audit binders had been laid on the long mahogany table, the Ashford Heritage Foundation opened its first restored block to the public. The ceremony was small. 20 chairs, a wrought iron gate by Callaway Coachworks, a length of cream ribbon, a small jazz trio on the back lawn. Vivian wore a pale gray dress and low heels. She stood at the gate and cut the ribbon herself. Lily stood beside her, in a white dress, holding a small bouquet of magnolia. Nate arrived 10 minutes late. He wore a dark blue shirt buttoned to the collar. No tie. He stood at the back of the crowd. He did not go to the dais. A reporter from Charleston magazine asked Vivian, gently, about her relationship with Mr. Calloway. Vivian smiled, very slightly. "We are building the same thing," she said. "Not a family. Not yet, but not nothing either." The reporter wrote it down word for word. After the ribbon, after the speeches, after the trio finished their set, Nate and Vivian walked Lily 3 blocks east along the waterfront, past the Battery, back into the historic district. They turned up East Bay Street. They stopped, almost by reflex, in front of Magnolia Quay Coffee. Rosa saw them through the glass before they reached the door. She held it open. She did not say anything. She walked them to the window table. The same table. She brought a cappuccino for Vivian, a double espresso for Nate, a hot chocolate with extra foam for Lily. She set the cups down. She inclined her head. She walked away, outside the window, where 6 months earlier there had been 3 of America's most expensive supercars. There were now only 2 vehicles parked at the curb. A 1998 Ford pickup, a black Range Rover, side by side under the late afternoon sun. Lily sat between them. She opened her ironwork book on the table. She turned to a page she had marked with the cream ribbon from her flower bouquet. She pointed at a gate with a pattern of looping vines and small forged leaves. "I want our gate to look like this. Can it, Daddy? Can it, Vivian?" Both of them leaned forward over the book. Their hands met above the page. Vivian's fingers touched the back of Nate's hand. Neither of them pulled away. Neither of them said anything about it. Vivian thought, for one quiet second, of the blind date 6 months earlier. 11 minutes. 3 of America's most expensive cars at the curb she had walked between without looking up. She smiled, faintly. Nate caught the smile. He did not ask what it was. He went back to the page. Neither of them had been looking, and that, perhaps, was why they finally found each other. The afternoon light fell gold across 2 old cars at the curb and the small brass plate beside the cafe door.